All right, I think we're going to get started here. So this is, let me just get this door. KT, thanks. All right. Thank you, guys. So please, first of all, just give a warm welcome for all these guys for helping us out. Taking one for the team. And this has always been one of the most valuable sessions, not only to Synergis, but this is an opportunity for you guys to get answers to whatever is on your mind in terms of experience about Adept, strategies, what's worked, what hasn't, really anything at all. You've got a phenomenal group of people up here. Rather than me going through and introducing all of them, I'm going to ask them. I'll ask each of those folks to do that. And maybe what you can do, and we'll start with Karyn, if that's all right with you, Karyn. And if you could just, actually pull up a little profile slide. And there we go. So we've got some information up on the screen there. You guys can't even see that, nor do you know what we've put up there.
No, we don't.
Incriminating information. No, this is just a little overview of each of the customers and how long they've been using Adept, number of users, products, whether it's out of the box or custom implementation, what they're managing just at a really high level. And are there remote locations, or is it just one central location? And then what CAD software are they using, just to help you understand a little bit about each of our presenters in the beginning. So just who are you? Maybe something interesting that you'd want to share with the group would be cool. And just how you're using Adept at a high level.
My name's Karyn Dawes. I'm with Fluid Components International, located in San Marcos, California. I've been with the company for 35 years, and I'm currently the configurations manager. My team manages and maintains the engineering documentation, but whatever they throw at us, we find a place for it in Adept. Fluid Components manufactures and designs flow and level switches, as mentioned up there. We have products in industrial, aerospace, and nuclear power. Everything from Hershey's, Ore-Ida, to the Apache helicopter B-1 bomber, as well as some nuclear power plants located right here in Pennsylvania. As mentioned, we have been in Adept since 2006. And of course, over time, we have, it's helped to improve a lot of our processes. And I'd say more recently, when we jumped into workflow, we were able to take some manual processes that our design and engineering teams were doing, put them into workflow, and ultimately out through Publish Wave. So that has really been, like I said, a big cost savings on our engineering design teams. Other than that, my spare time, I like to train my dogs and do dog agility.
Awesome. Thank you, Karyn. And next up.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name is Bob Burke. I work for Con Edison. For those of you who don't know, Con Ed supplies electric, steam, and gas to New York, all 5 boroughs, and as well as Westchester County as well. We've had Adept since December of last year. In fact, today is our 10-month anniversary. I didn't, yeah, oh yes. I didn't see cake. That's what I was going to say, right? Yeah. Maybe afterwards. Basically, we use it primarily for engineering drawings, really, again, in support of all of those commodities that I mentioned before, as well as our facilities. Right now, we're actually just starting to look forward as well towards leveraging Adept Integrator to try and bring in kind of more of a broader range of project documents and trying to be smart about that and not just go bullheaded into it. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
Did we get something personal about you?
Well,
if you don't mind.
So I'm a very superstitious Yankees fan, and so based on last night, I think I might have to come back to Bethlehem for the rest of the playoffs. So we'll see.
Oh, I like it. Awesome.
So I'm Brian Cranston. I'm with LSI Industries. I've been worked with that company about 18, 19 years. I kind of have 2 roles. I 25% of my time is CAD administrator. Technically, it's called like engineering technology coordinator or something like that, but that doesn't fit on a business card, so I usually just put CAD admin. And then I'd also do product design, so I'm releasing outdoor commercial area lighting fixtures, die castings, and that. So we installed Adept in 2015, almost 3 years ago this month. And we've been primarily, up until recently, using it for just more check-in, check-out of Inventor. We have multiple locations. It's really helped our company just getting all that stuff together. LSI has grown a lot through acquisitions. So we had a lot of product development going on around different places in the country. Spent a lot of time capturing all that, custom migration in, and then it's really helped the operations people and the buyers scattered around the different locations go to one place. So we're finally getting into scoping out some projects to grow workflows and things like that. When I get back next week, I'm going to kick off some projects and things like that. So primarily we use Inventor in the lighting group, and I have a lot of legacy AutoCAD data, so probably 60,000 DWGs or something like that. So I think that covers it. So interesting about me, I've been spending the last few years on vacations, driving around the country. So I've gotten to 47 states in the same car. So, yeah.
What kind of, no, never mind.
A 2004 Volvo XC90 with 208,000. Runs
cool.
like a top.
Love it. All right, Kevin.
All right, I'm up. So I'm Kevin Klinger. I'm with Intest Corporation. I've been with the company for 27 years. So I started when I was like 12 years old, almost. Anyway, so I am the applications engineer, and I manage Adept about 5% of my time. So I do product designs, and the company does design, manufactures test head docking, test head manipulators, and electrical interfaces for the semiconductor industry. So that is our division. We have other divisions in Massachusetts, which does thermal, and many other divisions that have grown as the company's grown through acquisitions. So we are using Adept mostly for our, I call it MDI, manipulators, docking, and interfaces. The Adept system has been something we've been using for 20 years. It was an NFM, as they have said, and it was definitely something that I had gone out and researched with another colleague, and we said, we gotta have this. We haven't necessarily grown with the software like many of you folks have, and is the reason I'm here today, is to learn from all of you mostly, but it is a tremendous product with a tremendous group of people that I am excited about. In my next, breaking down the silos, the next 12 months, my goal is to introduce these things to other groups within our company that will make them more efficient and just improve the process. What else am I supposed to say?
Something personal.
Oh, fun fact. I like to embarrass myself. I have no sense of smell, so if you did not, if you had a lot of onions for lunch, have no fear talking to me. I'll never know. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Ryan.
Hey everybody, some of you probably remember me from last year, standing up here yammering for a little while. So Ryan Mongeau from Space Age Electronics. A lot of you guys now know me as Star-Lord. That doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. So Space Age Electronics, we work in the life safety industry. So we make, it's kind of an umbrella term. We make interface components for life safety systems, smoke control panels, specialty detection, pretty much anything. If a building catches on fire, if there's a crisis event, it makes a bunch of noise and flashes. That's what we do. We're in places like with the Library of Congress, Fenway Park, Cowboy Stadium. So let's see. We've been using Adept since about the end of 2016. I think we're right about 2.5 years. So we use Publish Wave, we use workflows. All of the data that we have at Space Age, we manage in Adept. Since we're a manufacturer, our CNC programs for our fabrication machines, our marketing data, processes and procedures for ISO, pretty much anything, actually, yeah, everything that is digital, our entire workforce uses Adept. We're mostly SolidWorks. Adept Explorer, we do use countrywide. Our regional salespeople use that when they're interfacing with customers. They can see 3D views directly with the customer when they're going through and marking up and designing a system. And that's pretty much it, right? Fun fact. So you joked that you worked there for 12 years. I've actually, or since you were 12, I've actually worked at Space Age, since I was about 12. My grandfather started the company in 1963, so ever since, I was knee-high, I've worked at Space Age, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to back up just a little bit here so I don't fall off the edge. Hey, folks, I'm Gregg Schuler, and I'm the product manager with Dow Chemical, product manager for engineering document management. And I started off my career, I'm a chemical engineer by education, and I worked in the chemical industry and chemical plants for a long time. But then I switched and went to the vendor side in the software company, and eventually spent about 4 years at Amazon up in Seattle, and that's where I live now. And being at Amazon sort of had a significant impact upon me in a number of ways. And so when I joined Dow, I came and I said, we're going to implement Adept, and we want to delight our customers. And people looked at me like, this is a chemical plant industry. They don't have any choice but to use our software, so why do you have to worry about this? But I felt like we could do better. And so we've taken some of these concepts of really being focused on your customer and doing what it is to make them successful, rather than, we got the software, you got to just roll it out, you got to use it. And so when I joined Dow, it was the end of 2011, we just had selected Adept as the tool in this space. And we had a very narrow but deep focus, which was to go to all the sites we had and convert these sites from whatever document management system they had to Adept. And that's where we started. And now that system has, by the end of next year, we'll probably have upwards of 5 million documents in that system, and maybe several, like 7,000 users. That's my projection. Okay. So Chris is a gentleman that supports all this stuff. So, but I think I'm going to tie all this together because we started off with this narrow focus, but since we were really focused on having customers have a very good experience, all of a sudden we get phone calls from people. Hey, we heard about this Adept stuff, and can you put my documents? I have an application. I want to put all my equipment records in Adept. I'm executing some projects. I want to manage all my project documents in Adept. Right? And so the curve of Adept has really endowed, it's like this right now. And in the next year and a half or so, we will deploy maybe 3 new systems of Adept, one to manage all our best practices in engineering, one to manage all of our documents for workflow for engineering projects. And so it's really been a multi-purpose solution that started off narrow, but if you really focus on your customer, you can do amazing things. So that's kind of where we are. I guess interesting thing about me is that I love K-pop music. If any of you love Korean pop music, and if you're not up to speed with Blackpink, you're behind the times. Right? Okay.
Love it.
Hi, I'm Dave Ruddock. I'm from the National Superconducting Cyclotron Laboratory and Facility for Rare Isotope Beams at Michigan State University. NSCL, FRIB, MSU for short for all of them. Nice, lots of acronyms. We are a nuclear physics research facility. Our current operations are the cyclotron, and we're building our new accelerator, which will be FRIB. So that's our current project is going on. Our new accelerator, we're expecting to be online sometime in 2020. So we use Adept and PublishWave to manage all the engineering documents, and we do have a little bit of our manufacturing. We communicate fabrication work orders through it, and they get their documentation straight from Adept. So, anything else? We do some in-house customization to give our users some shortcuts or automate some of the process, such as making those fabrication work orders. A fun fact about me, I've gotten into road cycling this past summer. So,
Awesome. Thank you. All right, quite a group. Awesome. All right, so some of you have submitted questions. We did a little survey before the event, got some great feedback from you. So I've got a long list of questions, but you guys are here. So this is your opportunity to ask these guys whatever you want. I'll get things started. With 7 folks up there, we're probably not going to have a time for everyone to give feedback on every answer. So if it's something you feel connected to up there as the panelists, just give me a wave. Otherwise, you can also take a pass. All right, so first question, what is the top problems Adept has solved for your company? Anyone want to take a crack at that? Go ahead, Bob.
I'll break the ice, sure. So for us, we came from a legacy system that we had. So we weren't coming from nowhere, right? However, the system we had in place was heavily customized and suffered from a lot of performance issues, to the extent that folks would go to issue a package for construction and it would take days before it would get through the approval process. Not because people were sitting around and waiting, but literally because the system was slow. To us, when we went to implement Adept, we made the commitment both up our chain of command and to ourselves that we would try and limit ourselves to zero customization right out of the box to try and help with performance. And proud to say we did that, and certainly are reaping the benefits of that today. So.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else want to share top problems solved with Adept?
Even though we've obtained we received a lot more benefits than this, the original justification of us purchasing Adept was to reduce the risk of lost documents at various sites, because we had document management systems that were 15 years old. They were running on Windows 2000, which you couldn't support anymore. There was a whole myriad of reasons. Some were running on VAXs. And so the original justification was to get documents out of those systems into sustainable environments.
Great. One more on that?
I would say, obviously, we went 12 years ago, and we too had a system in place, but it was really just a system that held metadata. There was no connection to documents whatsoever. Everything was in paper, and what was revised and what have you was also put on aperture film. So that's how people would look up documents, would be, what do I want to see? Go look at it at the aperture film level and print it from there. So Adept really helped us to bring all our versions in, as well as the currents, so that now our users can not only see those currents, but if they need to see 3 revisions back, they can do that. And I back that up with, if the versions aren't there in Adept, we still do have them on aperture film to be able to bring them up. And when that kind of a thing happens, we PDF that document and bring it into Adept, so it will be there for the user the next time it's required.
Super, thank you. So maybe one or a couple of you can tell us your approach to rolling it out. These are customers coming, I selected ones where there was a lot of common threads from the feedback we got. Tell us your approach to rolling it out. What were the biggest obstacles? So 2-part question.
Yeah, so, well, it helped that I've been looking at Adept for several years. Poor Janet had come to visit me since like 2007, so. But I couldn't get traction on the idea at the upper levels. Finally, we got some new people in. They're looking at things a little differently. And the first week, the CTO was in. He goes, "What are you guys looking at for data management?" And I pulled out our proposal we never got traction on. And we went back through just to do our due diligence. And of course, Adept was the best choice for us. So when it comes to rolling it out, I think it's key to get your IT people in there at the beginning. Make sure that you get the opportunity for different people within the company. We did admin training for, we found a champion or volunteered a champion sometimes at each location, flew them in and did the admin training for each of those at each of those locations. So they understood the system in the back end and they can help articulate how it works and be a champion for it. And just get everyone that the system will touch, get a representative from them involved. I'm blessed to have an open, positive IT team, so I just call them up and say, hey, I need a new VMware server, boom, it's done. So, some people aren't that lucky, so it really helps to get those kind of resources in at the beginning.
And Brian, any big obstacles that you encountered along the way?
No, I think once, obviously I had an obstacle because it was like 8 years talking to Janet, but, or maybe she saw me as an obstacle, I'm not sure, but so it was finding the appetite for it, and so you got to work hard to push it. If you believe in a system, you have to work hard to expand the idea, the concept. So that's probably the biggest hurdle I had, was just getting interest in it and start to get traction on the idea.
Great. And for those of you who don't know Janet, want to stand up? Janet Keyhart's one of our account managers and one of the founders of Synergis. Anyone else have a story to share about your implementation and your approach and any big obstacles you had to overcome?
Similar thread. We came from a really broken system before installing Adept. I think pretty much everybody who, before they had some sort of document management system, used the regular old Windows file folders on a network share that everybody could just go in and take whatever they wanted, and it was pretty much just a free-for-all. It really only takes a couple catastrophic events to happen. Somebody accidentally deletes a folder or renames something they're not supposed to. So that's kind of where we came from. Our approach was kind of similar to yours, we didn't send everybody out to an admin training. We picked somebody from each department in the organization, so somebody from our CAD graphics department, somebody from engineering, somebody on the manufacturing floor, and spent a day, 2 days, one-on-one, individually, not all together, with each person to kind of show them, this is what you're going to run into, these are this is how we're designing the system to start off, so that they had a very high level and a very granular level knowledge of how the entire system works, so that not everybody's calling Ryan and emailing Ryan, because Ryan does a lot more stuff than just administer Adept. Yeah. So. Our biggest obstacle in the beginning was because we came from a broken system starting out. The confidence that the documents and files that everybody was searching for were going to be available when they looked for them was relatively low. But once we were able to prove that if it's in Adept, it's managed. You're not going to have to worry about anybody doing anything they're not supposed to, granted the access rights are set up properly. We ended up, had a conversation with somebody, I don't remember exactly who, a couple of our engineers really had a lot of pushback after the implementation. They were getting frustrated. What we ended up doing was sitting them down, like, all right, I want you to go get this file, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on my laptop right next to you, and I'm going to do it in less than half the time. And every single time, I was able to get the file faster than them. It takes a little bit. Not everybody's going to jump on board right away, but if you could really prove the benefits that you get from the system, it helps a lot in the long term.
Super, thank you. All right, so is there anything any of you would have done differently as far as the implementation goes? Any lessons learned that if you had to do it all over again, you might have taken a different approach or done something different?
Done something different. Originally, we basically migrated in 20 years worth of data. I would never do that again. I don't know that I can tell you what I would do or how I would do it differently, but I would probably do it in stages, with obviously starting with the more current so that I can keep my designers and engineers keep them working, and then here's this, let's get going, and now let's bring this in, because like I said, we brought 20 years worth of data in, and to this day, we still clean up stuff.
Right. Okay. Great.
Turn that question around. What did we do right, I think, from the beginning, right? That's what we could. And one of the things that we knew, we had many sites to migrate, and these sites came from a number of different acquisitions. So they all had different ways of slicing and dicing the metadata. So we spent a significant amount of time up front by looking at a number of systems we knew we were going to migrate, and we looked at all their metadata, and we said, can we come up with a universal set of this? And we've been about 80–85% correct, even though we've brought in many different sites. They pretty much all fit into that. So my point of this is, if you have multiple sites, thinking that the usage is going to expand into the future, then you should think about that up front, so you don't end up with a bunch of attributes that look the same, but they're not quite the same, et cetera. So I think that's something that we did that was good.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in on that? No? Okay.
One thing I would have done, Adept got brought in right before I got hired, so I didn't really have any clout when I started. But if I could do it again, I would have pushed more for us to implement workflow earlier in the process, because we ended up just having to come up with external processes that were workflow, and then eventually getting into depth and having to retrain everybody again. So we had to train everyone twice on how to get documents released instead of just doing workflow from the beginning and just doing it once.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Well, why don't I pause there? Is there any burning questions in the crowd? Anybody want? We've got runners with microphones if you'd like to dive in. No? I got tons of questions from you. I'll keep going unless there's a hand up. Okay. Let's see. One question that came up, what are your most important or favorite features or capabilities of Adept? What really makes the biggest difference to you guys? What was that?
Audit trail, yeah.
Interesting. Audit trail, love it.
I mean, the new favorites that came out in 2017, it's underutilized by folks in my organization. I use it personally, and we'll be spreading that knowledge. But for those who will be getting new versions of Adept or have it already, the favorites is definitely something that will save you time, a lot of time.
And sharing of favorites.
Yep, you can share 'em.
We really believe, because as we get bigger and bigger, the Adept system gets really large, and people really only want to see what they want to see. And one of the use cases somebody showed me one time in a plant, the person said, yeah, we have all these document systems, but I have an Excel file with all my documents in it. They're hard-coded links to a file share. I don't care about anything else. I just go to that and I click. He said, I want the same thing in your system. And we were able to give them a favorites link just to their P&IDs.
That's great.
Significant.
Nice. Anyone else? Favorites? Favorite features?
I'd say from my group, which we're probably the heaviest users being document management, I know we really like the copy library card. We love the search basket. Again, the shared favorites, the shared file sets, your column sets. Yeah, safe searches. I mean, they've really, we use that a lot. Some of my engineers actually use it, those that inquire. I'm more than happy to, show them how, because there's some, and I'm sure you guys all come across it, that they don't, it's like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And then they never use it. So you've spent your time to show it to them and put your time into it. So you really know the ones that want to use it. And so you're more than happy, oh yeah, there's this really cool feature. And they're like, oh yeah. So they go off and use it. And then they really use it. And so they've done a lot with the shared favorites. That was really a big hit.
Great. All right. Let's see. How do you handle new user training? So we come out, we do an implementation typically with you. We're very much involved in nearly all or every Adept implementation that happens up front But then over time, you hire more people, new people come in, departments get added. How do you guys handle new user training?
I'll jump in. So for us, it's still, I would say, still an evolution in terms of what we do. Again, only having for about 10 months now, we went live and established, I'll say, like a center of excellence in each organization, kind of similar to what folks were mentioning before, so that in addition to our administrators, who are obviously incredibly knowledgeable, there are also local experts in each of the groups that folks can feel more comfortable going to. So that was a start, but again, people leave, so it's not really sustainable. We made a good commitment to making sure that we had very strong documentation and training documentation. So I could have jumped in before when we talked about deploying. We actually had Nick Bogart was on site for many months. I don't know how many. 6. So there you go. So
Nick lives in California and relocated to New York City for 6 months.
Yep. And we sat right across from each other every single day. It was great. So one of the things that Nick was working on for us was developing those training materials for folks and really kind of giving a comprehensive set, both broad and kind of quick reference as well for users, so that you can bring people up to speed quickly, but also when you need to dig into the details, you'd have that there as well. We're playing with the idea of developing in-house training as well. That's not something we have yet. We do have a couple of videos that are available for folks also, though. So it's kind of self-guided, I guess, at this point.
I just want to comment on one piece. And talking with a lot of you, so there's so much to do with Adept, right? And you're dealing with legacy data. Gregg Schuler talked a lot about metadata quality, as did some of the other presenters. So metadata quality, user training. Just keep in mind that what Con Edison did with Nick and other customers have done with other application consultants, it's a great idea. If you are strapped for resources and time and you really want to take this thing to the next level, leverage our resources. We're available. We can basically move in like Nick did and spend some time and really help you do what you'd love to do, but you just don't have time to do. So keep that in mind. Go ahead.
A new site. We typically break the training into viewers and editors. And the viewers nowadays are mostly going to use the web interface. And we find we may not have to do any classroom at all. We have a PowerPoint we've put together, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. For the editor side, we typically have about a 2.5 hour class that's focused on the desktop at this point. But a key point here is there's training on Adept, how to use the interface, but there's training on how has the work process at that site changed when we use Adept. So that's a key component. And we usually make the site people prepare that and present that at the end of our training.
Okay. How do they typically deliver that, Gregg? Are they doing that with, is it like a guidebook or a training book they can take with them? Is it visual and they can get hands-on?
I think we've done both,
yeah.
But there actually are, Dow has a certain format of a sequence of how you document a work process, and typically they would update that and hand it out.
Okay.
But that's almost always the hardest thing, is to get the site people to actually go and update their work process documentation.
I'd say we see this issue that we're talking about as one of the most important. How do you get users adopted to the system? How do you effectively train them? And really help them understand their new work process with this new solution. So that's great. Anybody else want to contribute on that particular question with regards to getting new users trained as they get added to the system later on after an implementation?
The way we do it is before users are allowed into the system at all, we have a formal training process where people take their how to not fall off a ladder training and don't start fires and whatever. So we have a depth module in there that users have to go through, and we have separate ones for the Explorer users and for the desktop users that give them an overall. It's not as in-depth as actually sitting down with somebody, but it's a way for me to at least be able to say, when someone showed up and no one told me they were coming, they at least have to sit down and click through, my 40 slides and have I know they did that much instead of having done nothing. Before that, we'd kind of left it up to whoever was bringing the person into the system to train them, and it was really a mixed bag. Some groups did good jobs getting their people up, and some people were calling me, asking me what a work area is. So it's been much better than we had before. So.
And just a quick follow-on question, and then I know we've got a question from the audience as well queued up here. So follow-on question would be, just if Synergis could provide additional training for you, for your users, we provide an admin class, we provide user training typically when we're on site. But if we could provide either remote hands-on training or like just a complete video tutorial of nearly every feature in Adept, would one or both of those be valuable to you guys? You want to comment on that? Kevin?
It's probably a neglected thing at Intest. We don't have a lot of changeover, so the training isn't as important. There's a small document we put together that they reference when they start new. But I think what Scott is saying is, yeah, if we could do some mild customization to that training, going over the key points that are critical to the Intest employees, then yeah, that would be a valuable piece of a tool to do. And I think you can do that remotely. You know, get them all in a conference room and do the training. Also, the administrators, such as myself, might learn something new too, because you get stuck. This is for people who maybe have been using it for years, as opposed to the new folks. You get stuck doing things the same way. So this is why I'm here today, is to get some new ideas. We've been using the software for 20 years. But you have ideas, it's hard to implement, and if you get the folks in the room, buy some donuts, I guess, too. And they might enjoy it and learn new things. My guys learn new things from me all the time, but it's not really well documented. So that's what needs to happen.
Let me add to that, if you don't mind. So we actually experimented with some video training. And actually, Chris did this. And what we found was we broke it up. And this is my recommendation. If you're going to do something like that, you got to break it up into small enough bites that people can look in there and say, yeah, I do that, so I want to watch that one, but I don't do that. Because what we found was, you know, you guys have a lot of content on your website, but it doesn't really work because, let's say, a third of it, we don't do it. We don't use that feature. And so no one's going to sit there and watch the whole video. So if you're going to create something, create it in small bite-sized pieces that people can pick and choose.
Like covering what's new, some of the newer functionality every release, because you know, like we've got a lot. I've been here 10, 12, 15 years back, whatever, and it'd be good to just do small chunks. Oh, here's what's new in this feature, and just 2 or 3 minute video.
I also heard someone here in the front say to make that video but index it, so it's like kind of going back almost like a Word, PDF file. Oh, I need to see this. Click, and it takes you to that section of the video.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wonderful. We've got a question from the crowd. Randall?
Yeah, hi. Am I live? Okay, there I am. Actually, they handed me the mic and I thought of a second question, so bear with me. In my work as the guest blogger for the Synergis blog, a lot of what I write is meant to be read by prospective customers. So I'm thinking about features and how those things get shaped, and I'm curious about Adept's wraparound sort of vaulting, where the promotional material that I always see says, we don't move your material, we don't tear it, you don't tear your documents apart. How did that? How were you attracted to that as a potential user, and what did it mean to you as an actual user? And then I have another question after that.
As far as the wraparound goes, our system, we have our own developed internal web reporting that connects to our ERP, and it was very dependent on that file structure that we had before implementing Adept. So we didn't have to worry about rewriting all of this code to be able to still go in and look through files that PDFs and things like that. So that was one of the biggest drivers. The other one is disaster recovery. If anything ever happened, I could just shut it off, and it's really not that big of a deal. We're back to Windows directories. Everybody's familiar with it. God forbid that ever actually did happen. But it's a little bit more of a peace of mind thing. And plus, we still have full control over all of that data. We're not tied to somebody's database and an exporting tool, renaming files. It's all exactly as you expect it to be.
Okay.
I'll comment on that too. To what Scott was worried about is how do you create a video? Well, letting your potential customers know what happens when that version copy gets moved and where it ends up. I don't know if there's anything actually on the website today that shows them that, or if that would just be a tool that Synergis would use to show that potential customer, because it's nice to see what's really happening behind the scenes. I'm an engineer that wants to know what's really going on behind the scenes. This is all great over here, but what's really happening? And I actually have read-only access to our vault. I'm the only guy who does. So I can see what's happening, and it's, you still feel comfortable with it. So maybe the users out there, potential users, would maybe understand the system even better if they really knew what was happening. A division in California still wants to put the revision letter in the file name. Like how backwards can we be?
That's what metadata is.
But I think they had something set up originally wrong. They're running independently from our group. I don't have any real control over that. So, but the point is, I think they got burnt by that once before, long ago when it was NFM, and it probably was a self-inflicted wound, and they just are gun-shy still to this day about it. And if anybody out there had that happen to them in a different software and we're thinking about switching to Synergis, showing them that and what happens is critical. So
That's one of our biggest problems, moving things from the Documentum system, where everything is abstracted and it's the encrypted names. That's the biggest hassle, is trying to get that out from an export tool, right? Yeah, so I don't want to do that.
Okay. My second question is, how much of your use of Adept is about whole documents versus some level of granularity, where a user really just wants that bill of materials data? Is it still a whole document approach, or are you reaching inside and pulling out just the data you need? So it's a how you apply the software kind of a question.
I can answer quickly. For us, it's whole document. We don't have really pieces that we're pulling out. It's someone needs access to the drawing, need access to the whole shebang.
We're the same way, the whole document.
I'd say for us, it's at the native file level, depending on if it's SolidWorks or AutoCAD, would depend if it's a whole document, but when it gets published out to sales or production, it's a whole document.
Great, and I think we've got a question back here.
Not being an IT person myself, do any of you feel it's cumbersome to upgrade to the newer versions? Or do you guys handle it yourselves? I mean, I would benefit using a video to know how to do that, but how do you guys handle it? Does your IT department handle it, or you do it yourself?
I manage it when we're doing an upgrade. So we have the sandbox environment, 2018 installed, running on there. It's just more right now. It's kind of a bandwidth thing to get everybody back up to speed. So it's not like we're going to be able to roll it out tomorrow, but to actually get it 2018 in that test environment installed and up and running, it took me 45 minutes, an hour, maybe. It really wasn't that big of a deal. It was probably longer than that, but it wasn't like, I was spending days reading through documentation and troubleshooting errors. It's really, the development team at Synergis, they do a really, really good job rolling out updates. I personally have never had an issue doing anything.
I would second that. My IT department does it. And it seems to work extremely well.
All right, and I think we've got a question over here as well. Chris?
Right, so congratulations, I'm your new CEO. What is your 20 or 30 second elevator speech to tell me the value of Adept to you and what kind of metrics you have, or what's the value bringing to me and my company?
Adept is our tool for giving everyone one place to go for all the engineering documentation. And anyone in the company can go to through the web browser, or if they're an editor, go through a desktop application and work with that data.
And to kind of add on to that, any other manufacturing companies here that are ISO 9000, we have to be able to only have available the most current and approved version of a drawing. There you go. That solves the entire problem, because everybody's only going to one place. You can't possibly go and get the wrong version of the drawing.
As the CEO, you're probably it's important to know that only that file gets edited by one person when it gets checked out, and there won't be this problem with multiple edits or multiple versions, and you need to secure that. So that file's locked out, that person's editing it, nobody else can touch it till it goes back in. I mean, I think that's Adept at its core.
Anybody else have a different 30-second elevator pitch to your CEO on the value that Adept brings to your company?
Yeah, for us, I'd tell my CEO that it's about the access control. It gives us granular control over the documents. It also gives us the ability to track relationships between documents, which Windows doesn't do, SharePoint doesn't do. You need a special system for that. And that's my sales pitch.
All right, and then we've got a question here.
So my name's Paul from Wolf Point Engineers. We're a pretty small engineering firm. We're lean and mean, and we subcontract engineering. And we share the actual AutoCAD files with our subcontractors. Do you guys have experience of how you would handle that with Adept?
Are your contractors on your network or outside of your network?
Outside.
Okay.
What CAD software?
AutoCAD?
Yeah,
XREFs?
Some of them would have XREFs.
So I can speak more from Inventor, because we have some contract engineering in India for the high spots. And we are lucky that we have one person from that company in our building on our system with, full active creds and signatures for all that and stuff. So he's in and out like the rest of us are. So he'll pull the stuff out, package it up, send it to his team in India. And when they're done with it, they'll send it back and acquire. If it's checked out, he'll just save over what's in his work area and check back in the things that have been updated.
So they actually have the software?
Well, they'll run Inventor. They have Inventor at their facility. The licenses they own.
But they don't have the Adept software?
No. We have two ways of doing it, actually. We do have some technology, some secure link technology through the firewall that we let them in. We also give them the ability to securely go into our network. They have some credentials to log into the system, puts them into a PC, and they can run stuff locally. We do both ways, really.
Do we have a mic? Sorry.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Yeah, Adept allows you to authenticate both internally and directly through Adept. And this is what we were looking at. But we have a fundamental problem that we don't let people anywhere outside of Dow's network directly into Dow's network unless they're a Dow user ID and have a machine. So that's a constraint to us.
One of the main things is depends on how your workflow is going to be. Like with us, we're all outside unless I'm drawing it myself. So what I do is I receive it. I have a custom CAD rules that they have to follow. So everything has to be bound. Everything has to be in the file itself, attributes. So I give them a template AutoCAD file that they have to use. So it's my title block. It's my standards. So when I import it into my system, my Adept automatically recognizes it. And then what I do is between me and my boss, because he's the engineer, I check it in, I create the workflow, and I send it to him. He approves it. Once he approves it, it goes in our system.
Mm-hmm. Question. We get asked recently many times, how can we exchange documents outside to outside people and put them directly into Adept? And we don't have a very good answer to that solution. And it's not an easy problem to solve.
One thing you might look at doing is using the transmittal feature. If you're having them do edits to your existing documents, would be a way to document what you're sending out and when you did it.
I'll chime in. So with Adept Creator, even before we had Creator, you could buy a SSL certificate, install it. Anybody outside of your network can access. You can build them a Adept username. They don't have to be an Active Directory, but you have to open up certain ports in your firewall. And now with Creator, they can check in and check out in the same functionality. You pay the license. But that's up to you. Yeah, you could charge them. You could charge them. That's right. You got to buy the licenses. Somebody does.
She's got one.
Solutions at the workstation level, and potentially doing, at least for remote workers who are direct employees of my company, we do have one engineer that's in Virginia. Well, we're based in Cincinnati, and he works remotely that way. We gave him a workstation. He has a firewall device on his broadband connection that connects with our system, and so it's all encrypted between and stuff. But we are looking at VDI solutions, and which would solve a lot of and solve the bandwidth issues as well. So hopefully.
There's no one-size-fits-all for that, I would say, but so Nick gave a great summary there, and we have many customers doing it that way. We do have customers using Adept with, in some cases, dozens, even hundreds of contractors, but it's a customer-specific situation, and what is IT okay with, and things like that. So it's a deeper conversation, but this has been really good. Do we have another question over here? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have one question for Karyn. So you mentioned your company used to customize the workflow and also work with the publish wave. Can you explain to a little bit more in the detail?
Our two custom programs for workflow. One allows us to move the workflow around rather than at the library level say this document will always go through Workflow 101. Because we have many drawings that are utilized cross-platform, it's not necessarily the aerospace guys that always have to review and prove it. Maybe the nuclear guys because they're adding, say, a resistor to a document, but we're utilizing the same drawing, just adding a different value. So we needed to have the ability to switch workflows on the fly. And if I remember correctly, if you're given reviewer rights, you can do that. I was not giving reviewer rights to 20 engineers. Wasn't happening, not in my organization. No. So we had that capability as well as we do have our documentation go through the steps of the workflow. And when it goes to Publish Wave, we push the approvals to the documents before they're PDF'd in Publish Wave. And our Publish Wave server is, I was explaining to somebody last night, I think, we actually, document control publishes the document to PDF before it ever gets back into Adept because we need to make sure that the correct title blocks are used, that all the approvals are there, that if it says I have pages 1 through 4, I have pages 1 through 4. The things that are missing are not missing. So I have a chance to reject it at that point before it gets into Adept as a final signed-off version. Once we do that, we have folders that are waiting there, so we drop it in. Adept comes out and says, oh, look, there's somebody in here, and takes and sucks it up into Adept, so that's our P2A. At the same time, in our rule set, we need to have that document put into 2 external folders on the network, so it also drops that same approved document into those 2 external folders as well, and then they're available there for our ERP system currently. So we have it drop at other places. Did that answer your question? Okay.
And then we got a question right here. Thanks,
So
Karyn.
actually, before we get too far away, speaking from, I am an IT guy. Don't worry, I don't take any offense to that. Kind of answering your question about the wrapper vault, and Michael, I'm not sure where you are. You had asked me why I kind of like Adept. From a recoverability standpoint, it was a lot easier when a user would call me up and they could pinpoint exactly the folder structure that mirrored what I had to go into the recovery software to grab, as opposed to some encrypted file name that I might have to spend all night recovering the whole thing just to get one file, where they could call me up in a matter of, as fast as the NAS could provide it, their documents back in the system.
Do we have, yep, all right, right up front.
So maybe just one more comment about what I would refer to as concurrent engineering. I think I heard Kevin mention that, you know, once a drawing's in Adept, it's checked out and it's only being modified one time. And that's, you know, perhaps in your workflows and your scenarios. But what I think we've all been challenged with in the industry in general is what to do with a drawing or a set of drawings, a set of master drawings that are part of a project, part of potentially multiple projects. All the while, at least at the Merck facility here that we're representing, those same drawings could be under change control for maintenance projects, PMs, you name it. So it's always been what to do with that workflow. And I think it's always been a challenge, even when drawings exist on a shared drive in a traditional hierarchy. Yes, we manually check them out. We make a note of it. We track the projects. We have a project turnover compliance process. But I'm concerned that even heading into Adept, that problem is compounded, because you can't just take the drawing and hand it out. You do have to check it out. And yes, I presume there's some sort of a copy out feature, which is really, you know, an end around. So if it's checked out one time to Project A, Project B that's running in concurrence with Project A, it needs the same set of masters. What do? We've been challenged by that process for a long, long time. And I don't know that there's a real solid solution.
Nick?
Nick found an out-of-the-box solution that handles concurrent engineering with the same drawings, right? It's a kludgy way, but what our people do is they duplicate the drawing or they rename it, and they work on that. And there's a work process to manage those things being put back together.
Right, so and it's very much a manual process.
It
and
is.
I think one of the things that's been suggested over the years at Merck is there's two scenarios. Either you literally check out to the first project, and then as a change comes, and we manage drawings in-house,
yes,
then we have to literally refresh the copy going to Project A.
Yeah.
Other people have suggested over the years, by the way, on the project side, well, let's let Project A communicate with Project B and let them share their masters.
Yep.
It really is
It's
a kludgy
painful,
way.
but I mean,
It's
if
totally
you
painful.
kind of used some of the markup functionality, you could capture markups on a particular document from multiple people, and you knew exactly who had made all those changes.
Right.
And then you could reconcile at the end the
Bingo.
document.
Right, so that's the word we use in-house, at least I do quite a bit, is we act as the clearinghouse, my team, and ultimately try and be the gatekeeper and try and dictate when and when not certain projects get certain drawings. And of course, the project teams are all tapping their foot at that time, you know, saying we need them, we need them. One of the reasons why we'd like to see project engineering utilize Adept as well, not just for the in-house master drawing management. One other quick question, it really is a question I think mostly maybe for Gregg Schuler. From a communication standpoint, Adept's coming in the door, brand new to a company, maybe a larger enterprise-wide type company, multiple sites and so forth. How do you manage the communication plan? When it comes right down to it, this is a full-blown IT project, and if you follow system development lifecycle, you got a training plan, communication plan, UAT, FAT, you name it. How do you overcome the challenges of communication, getting it down to the right level?
The first thing that we did, because we had many different sites, and we had to come up with, well, what's the order we do these? Right? And we had 10 different sites say, come do me first. So the very first thing we did was use, Kempner-Trigo methodology of saying, let's have a set of categories that really looked at the risk of not doing something, right? They have usability problems? Are they running on an unsupported operating system? How many people are impacted? And we went through a pretty objective assessment that said, here's the order we do things. So that resolved well, why are you doing that place first? There's politics involved, right? And we could point to it and we'll say, well, we would actually do that with the site And so they'd see other sites above them, and they'd say, oh, well, we don't like it, but we can see how we did it. Okay?
So at Dow, was there some sort of executive sponsorship and a communication that was cascaded, or was it done at the operational level and pushed sideways?
I did it, and we had a lot of autonomy. And then what happened was we kind of worked with each site, and at each site we have actually a project methodology, and we start off and we go to them and say, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, and here's where your input is going to be. But I think one of the most significant things that we did, it was very simple. When we first have a meeting with these people, we say, okay, we believe Adept can bring you a lot of advantages, but we're going to guarantee you one thing, two things. We're not going to break anything you're doing today, and we're not going to turn it on until you say we're ready to go. And just saying those two things and sticking to those two things we had an issue because all of our team was in the US. One of our first big implementations was in Europe, in the Netherlands. And they told me later they were used to these Americans coming in saying, here's what you get. Okay? And so we went out of our way to say we want to first thing we want to do is understand what you do today, what works today, what doesn't work today, and we don't want to break any of that. So that was like the best communication plan.
So it was not a mandate from the top down. So you took more an operational communication level approach. Yet you were empowered to be doing what you were doing.
We wanted it to be 80% pull and 20% push, right?
I understand.
And if you do it that way and people believe it, it eliminates a lot of the need to have bunches of communications. Okay? Yeah. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
I wanted to teach a class on this subject this week. So let me chime in. So imagine you have 3 different projects that need to edit the file simultaneously. What I usually do is copy and rename by adding either a prefix or a suffix, whether it's a discipline or what have you. Immediately relate that file to the master, okay, because that's what you're taking a copy of. They edit the files in any order, check it in. You have a gatekeeper, you can execute an acquired checkout, and it'll immediately make the master the incoming version, or the gatekeeper can actually reproduce the changes into the master drawing, and it steps through the workflow. You're renaming the copy, never the master. Yes, that's correct.
The only thing I'll add is that is something that we want to add functionality and capability to address that further than what Nick described, which is the way customers are doing it today. But we understand the issue, absolutely. So that's great. Regrettably, we are already 10 minutes over, which is okay. I have a question for you guys. Let me. We'll take one more question. We'll take one more. But I have a quick question for you guys. Would you prefer this to be a 90-minute session next year? I mean, I think 60. I still have like 20 really juicy questions I'd love to get to. So, yeah, show of hands, a little bit longer. Okay, great. And one last question.
Oh, mine's not nearly that deep or intense. I'm just wondering about workflows. How many workflows do you have? And inside the workflows, do you have individual users in there or user groups? And then why did you choose to do what you've done?
We use workflows a lot. We're tightly integrated. So I would say that right now we have over 100 workflows themselves. My aerospace group is the worst offender. Right before I left, I'm probably chopping them down to about 50, or not, I'm sorry, down to 25. I created a field in my search card so I could see what workflows were being used. I ran it all by 100 because that's their prefix for their workflow numbers. Sorted it out, said get rid of all the duplicates, and boom, I have a list this big that they've used over 4 years. So I'm in that process. When I get back, I'll be finishing that up. My biggest workflow probably has 10 steps. And I will say that I originally started by adding people to the workflow steps. And right about the right time, I had somebody leave, and we did a go-to-meeting with Keurig, and I thank Keurig every day. Not just for their coffee, but they use workflow groups. So so about that same time, I was putting them individually, and Trey left. Okay, now I got to go into 50 workflows, take Trey out. Where with my workflow group, I can go to that one group or two groups, take Trey out, and he's wiped out of 100 workflows. So I strongly suggest workflow groups.
And on the other side of that, if you're bringing on somebody new, you only have 2 or 3 different places that you need to add them in, and now they're in all of those workflows that those particular groups are affected by.
Can I ask a question about this? Do you see value in having some tool to bulk import configuration of workflows with distribution lists?
I don't know.
I guess not. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, wow. This has been awesome. Thank you, guys. Please give these guys a huge round of applause. You guys are great sports. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.